Hello everyone, welcome to the market outlook for this week, and a little bit of subdued opening this morning, and I think it was a fallback of what we saw on Friday. uh, and last week when we shared our market view for the last week, we did mention that you could possibly witness some profit booking. We did move up beyond those levels that I had mentioned of 14,500 on the Nifty spot. We actually made a high of 14,653 on the Nifty spot, and for the Sensex we saw a high of 49,795. This was last week, and then we were trading with a little bit of flattish buyers in a range. Then came last week Friday, where we witnessed profit booking, followed by this morning again we did see a little bit of profit booking, and this was expected, friends. And as we've been always maintaining that smaller corrections, profit booking, consolidation, downward move is always healthy for the market, because that gives an opportunity for new players to come in, that gives an opportunity for the market to consolidate and make a strong base before the big event in terms of budget and of course the third quarter earnings. And our view is that maybe today, tomorrow, we might find some bottom um, and make the move upwards. Now, we did mention about IT earnings last week. We saw Infosys, HCL Tech, Tata Elxsi, Wipro, Infosys announce their numbers, and all those numbers from the IT pack, whatever we've seen up till now, were much in line, and some numbers were beyond expectation, and that's why you've seen a major re-rating happening in the IT pack, and this will continue because purely of the strong commentary from the management in terms of the business outlook for the quarters to come by. And like we mentioned last time, IT is going to be something that is going to be in focus. It's going to be in spotlight. All corrections like we've seen today or last week on Friday should be used as buying opportunity in strong sectors, strong names, strong companies, and IT and pharma, private sector banks happens to be one of them. Now, this profit booking may last for some time, but our guess is that we are again going to build the momentum as we approach 1st of Feb, the budget day, and maybe just before that or during that time we might have some choppiness on volatility. Having said that, we also heard from certain sources, they were not government sources, but some news channels were saying that there is a possibility of scrappage policy for commercial vehicles to come through. Now, friends, if that happens, then I think this was a long awaited demand from the industry side as well, because as of today, if you actually see the age of the commercial vehicle running on the roads in India, and if you compare the new vehicles, then the old vehicles outsmart the new vehicles. There are a lot of old vehicles, and if the scrappage policy comes through on the budget day by the Honorable Finance Minister with absolute clarity, then I think all the commercial vehicle manufacturing companies are going to benefit to a great extent, subject to, of course, the scrappage policy being absolutely clear with no ifs and buts. So you have names like all the commercial vehicle companies like Tata Motors, Ashok Leyland, Mahindra and Mahindra. You have names like Eicher Motor. That's going to be looking in the spotlight on fallback of the scrappage policy, and even otherwise, if you actually go to see, auto sector has been buzzing purely on fallback of the numbers for the month gone by, December 20, and the outlook in terms of new launches that is likely to happen. And of course, one more auto sector related clarity that is needed is the electric vehicle policy along with charging infrastructure, and if the taxation structure for electric vehicle or the components that go into making electric vehicle, if the Honorable Finance Minister has to reflect upon these areas also and bring down the cost of an electric vehicle, because if you go to actually see, I think if I'm not mistaken, what I am given to understand is that the starting price for an electric four-wheeler I'm talking about is somewhere close to about 14 or 15 lakhs. On road it goes up to a little bit higher. And along with that also two-wheeler, electric two-wheelers. If something comes up in the budget for the commercial vehicle, along with that, if there is a clarity of e-vehicles and charging infrastructure, then I think that's going to be a double boost for the auto sector. Of course, this is wishful thinking. I hope it comes through because it's a long pending demand. Coming back on the markets, well, I think whatever earnings we've seen minus the IT pack also, we saw HDFC Bank as well, still a set of numbers, and there is a tremendous amount of buying interest coming through, and that's what exactly we highlighted last week also, and even before that in our earlier conversation, that in the banking universe, if you primarily have to be in one particular area, that's going to be private sector, strong private sector banks, HDFC, Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, Kotak Bank. Then you have certain mid-cap names like Federal Bank, you have names like Bandhan Bank, you have names like IndusInd Bank, you have names like RBL Bank. These are smaller banks like IDFC First Bank. I think these are some of the strength areas in the private sector banks, and that's where you need to focus. And I think there's going to be a lot to be delivered by the Honorable Finance Minister on the banking sector as well. So the mood looks quite sober. The confidence look intact. It's a minor profit booking they're witnessing on the Sensex and Nifty. And I think somewhere close to by the end of the day or tomorrow, we should find a base and then again consolidate and move upwards. As far as flows are concerned, well, they remain absolutely robust. Buy side, sell side figures are almost matching almost every second, third day from the FI and domestic institutions. And retail and high net worth investors are nibbling into some quality names on fallback of good third quarter earnings and outlook for the rest of the quarter that remains for this financial year and the next financial year. Crude oil does make a move on the higher level and then consolidate, so nothing to worry over there. On the rupee dollar, well, 73 was the strength on the INR, that's what we mentioned. And as I speak to you, 73, 20, 25 is the ongoing rate against the dollar for the Indian rupee. And the range remains 73 and 73 and a half. Possibly that we might see some strength again coming back on the INR against the dollar. Certain sectors that can be kept in mind with the budget. These, of course, I am not talking about short term, medium term. So please bear that in mind. On fallback of expectation from the budget, well, my expectation is that, like I mentioned, infrastructure spending is going to look quite strong. So your cement and metal will do well, infrastructure companies will do well. One more area that I would like to touch upon is the hospitals and diagnosis sector. And on fallback of the pandemic that we've seen that unfolded and took the entire world with a huge surprise on the negative side, maybe at a personal level, if you undertake a medical checkup annually, then that could be something that the finance minister would be willing to look at in terms of exemption in some form or the other. This is of course wishful thinking. And for the hospitals also, I think there is going to be that's a lesson that has learned, the world has learned a lesson from this pandemic COVID-19 or coronavirus, that your healthcare sector needs to be reinforced and made even much more stronger. As we go into the future, we don't know what will hit us, and to prepare ourselves, I think if you're going to spend on infrastructure, creating India, getting the GDP going, then it is equally important for the government to make people realize, that is the population of the country realize how important individuals' health is, and for that you need to undertake checkups, you need to build hospitals, etc., etc. So I think diagnosis center and hospitals would be something that would be interesting in terms of budget announcement, expecting that they will deliver. And even if they don't do that, if you purely look upon the earnings of these two sectors, that is hospitals and diagnosis, healthcare related, then they have delivered far better numbers. Of course, pharmaceuticals is a different ballgame altogether, and it will continue to gain the momentum the way IT will continue to gain momentum. So those two sectors are going to be the prime spotlight in terms of investable opportunities in strong companies in these two structures. And the other alternative would be hospitals and diagnosis center. So expecting that this market is not going to surprise us on the negative side on the lower end, and keeping in mind that we did see a correction on Friday, we are seeing a slip over of that this week, today, that is Monday morning, and likely to possibly last till the time we wind up the trade with some buying interest coming in at lower end. And then of course tomorrow, day after, and for this week, my sense is that we could possibly find some base, unless and until you have some really unpleasant news from the overseas market, because domestically, at least till where I can see in the horizon, I don't see any huge negative news flow from the domestic front. So like we've been advising always, buy on dips, and honestly speaking, these are the kind of corrections that you should go and commit your capital for long term by investing into the sectors and themes that we have been advising over a longer period of time, strong sectors. For the budget, like I mentioned, short to medium term traders, don't wait. As and when you get profitable exits in your short to medium term trade, I think you should take that, increase your cash component, wait for the budget to unfold, wait for people to dissect, for you to understand what the budget is and what lies ahead, and then possibly post that take some calls in terms of your short to medium term investments. Otherwise, if you are wanting to shift from short term, medium term, long term, I think long term there are plenty of opportunities, and we've discussed many sectors and stocks over there. So we continue to remain positive. Healthcare, that is hospitals, diagnosis is something that you should look at. Auto sector on fallback of scrappage policy and electric vehicle and charging infrastructure. Banking in terms of reforms that are likely to come through. IT and pharma has a spotlight, evergreen spotlight, at least on fallback of what has happened. Strong NBFCs, cement and metal, theme being government spending in Bharat Nirman, creating infrastructure. I think that's going to be the pocket that you should identify yourself. And of course, consumption driven stocks always look positive. Until next week, friends, see you, take care, and hope you be in good health. Bye bye for now.